I don't like her. Like I haven't stopped pulling. It's all because of who you and fucking dire onslaught. I am addicted like a bitch. Alright, let's just get this over with. Do a 10 pull. I would have liked an early, but it's never like I'm gonna get anything. This should be it. Oh, it's not it. And all my pulls are gone. At least I got him, so. Oh, it was quick. Got Flins. What am I even doing? What am I even doing in this game? Oh, early's for me though. Man, I'm almost out the XP books. Did I give anything to level him up easily? Oh, I guess I already have some of those things. Almost out of XP books. Or 38. I do have some stuff though. Like I have this piece. I have this piece. Also have this one. Not sure which one is better. I have stuff I never leveled. I guess I have this. I don't know if this works. Time to save for Columbina now. So what is this build supposed to look like? 72. Well, that's kind of the goal, right? Because this set will give him that much. I could craft a goblet. Are you supposed to build flints?
Oh, why not?
So he wants crit damage. That's the main stuff. I just need a flower. What's the ascension? Is it crit rate or crit damage? It's crit damage. Was it smart getting flints? I don't know. I have no reason to play. I don't know what I'm doing in this game anymore. Flints is just a bad investment, let's be real. I just got him because I'm like, you know what? Who knows? Already have an Nefa. M1. And between Nefer, like he could trigger Hyper Bloom. What's her name can't? Yeah, I probably can't even do the next one, can I? Well, the next one requires characters can't heal. Which pretty much nerfs the living shit out of New Valette. I guess Skirk is meant to fight that one. So what got me over the edge to pull for Flins? The endgame mode. And I have a... What's her name?
As well as elemental skill type damage, which is his elemental skill 2, so you can level up his skill as a second priority to increase this roughly 13% of his damage output. Then we have the Lunar Charge reaction, which of course leveling up his talents doesn't affect, so yeah, prioritize his burst, then his skill, and then you can level up his basics last if you feel like it, but you don't have to level those up. we've made it to the definitive, Flinformative, and Flinspirational math, starting with his artifacts and stats. By far, Flins' best set is the Knight of the Skies Unveiling. Since Flins should be used with Ascendant Gleam, and pretty much always be used with Ascendant Gleam, the Knight of the Skies Unveiling provides, with its 2-piece set bonus, 80 Elemental Mastery, and with its 4-piece set bonus, 30% crit rate, and 10% lunar damage. Clearly, this set is designed for main DPS lunar characters, and Flins is a main DPS lunar character. For the Sands, it's attack percent. The other main stats, Elemental Mastery and Energy Recharge, are generally not recommended, but sure, you can use them. Elemental Mastery just gives you less damage than attack percent, so you would prefer attack percent. Energy Recharge, though, is an interesting option, and can sometimes be useful for enabling more Mega Bursts, and or battering at the beginning of Stygian Onslaught. However, I think in most situations you're better off with other characters battering Flins, like them using Favonius, over sacrificing a ton of his personal damage with an Energy Recharge timepiece. Next, we have his Goblet, where, again, attack percent is the most recommended. I did calc an electro damage goblet for humorous purposes, and it was about as funny as I expected, or at least I guess as funny as a number on a spreadsheet can be, because I don't have any good punchline to describe how flimsy it feels to use on Flins. Flins' damage distribution consists mostly of lunar charge damage, and, well, electro damage doesn't boost lunar charge damage. Next, we have the Marichasi Hunter, which is usable specifically with one team, a Nepha plus Fiorina plus a healer. You need a Nepha because, well, you need a second Nodcry character for Ascendant Gleam, and if you're going to replace Ino with Fiorina, then you also need a healer, so therefore, a Nepha plus Fiorina plus a healer. You can use this setup in the interim while farming for the Knights of the Skies Unveiling. Next, we have the 4-piece Gilded Dreams and 2-piece plus 2-piece combos, which are usable while you're farming for a good 4-piece Knights of the Skies Unveiling. 4-piece Thundering Fury is an interesting option, although I don't recommend it, but I believe it shortens the cooldown on his skill, although I think I might need some additional testing, but it doesn't shorten the cooldown on the second skill that enables his mini burst. As such, his second skill has a 6-second fixed cooldown. Maybe there's some application for this to shorten the cooldown of his regular elemental skill, but overall, I don't really recommend it. Next, we need to talk about Flin's Flinergy Recharge. Flins needs Flinergy in order to flinish off his Flinemies. With his standard double mini burst combo, he only needs 60 energy per rotation. Alternatively, with his Mega Rotation, it costs 140 energy. Typically, Mega Rotations are much more situational and treated more as a bonus when enemies and or situations grace you with enough Flinergy. Alternatively, it can be for the first rotation of the cycle when you have full energy. However, here is a chart with various teams and weapons. As we can see, Flinergy Recharge is always a massive moving target, and frankly, in modes like Stygian Onslaught, it complicates it even more as each situation needs different amounts of energy recharge. Anyway, I personally found around 138% Flinergy Recharge to be a very comfortable amount, with non-energy recharge weapons, like the Prospector Shovel, working well with the Cookie Cutter Flinefa team. Also remember, his signature weapon gives him 12 flat Flinergy, typically around once per rotation, which is why it reduces his Flinergy recharge requirements significantly. Anyway, as always, you'll want to experiment and just squeeze out what Flinergy recharge you can and what works for your account and the fight in question. For substats, it's the usual crit rate, crit damage, and attack percent. Then we have Elemental Mastery, which is okay, and Flat Attack isn't useless either. Lastly, Flinergy Recharge, as we've discussed, is great for Flins, but that is always a moving target. We've finally made it to Flins' weapon options. Unsurprisingly, his signature weapon, the Blood-Soaked Ruins, is best on paper because you can trade off energy recharge to other stats. This thing performs roughly 30% better than his free-to-play option, the Prospector Shovel. This thing provides a lot of stuff for Flins, including additional crit damage, lunar charge damage, and 12 flat energy every rotation or so. The extra energy can help with ramp-up time in Stygian Onslaught, as well as situationally enable more mega rotations. Now keep in mind that this weapon might be overperforming a bit in calcs than in practice due to having almost no energy recharge substat rolls, because all the rolls were allocated to other stats. I will also say that in practice, this weapon does not feel 30% better, at least when I tried it, than the Prospector Shovel, but that's also because I didn't have the artifacts to shift the energy recharge substat rolls into crit damage, attack percent, and elemental mastery and crit rate. Now the Staff of Scarlet Sands is also a solid option, but sigh no, it does have a catch. The issue is the weapon's very high crit rate secondary stat, putting him at 79.1% crit rate without any crit rate rolls. So this might be more difficult to build depending on your artifact RNG to avoid overcrit, as any crit rate over 100% is wasted. So now Flins can rob Sino of his weapon, his place in the meta, and even his jokes. Then we have some decent 5-star stat sticks, the Fractured Halo, Staff of Homa, Primordial Jadewing Spear, and the Lumiduki Elegy. After that, we've got the Battle Pass weapons, the Deathmatch, and the Ballad of the Fords, which are both good options, especially with refinements. Keep an eye on overcritting though with the Deathmatch due to its high crit rate. And it's time to dig Flins' best Flins to play option out from our empty wallets with the Prospector Shovel. The Prospector Shovel is craftable and therefore very free to play friendly, and it provides attack percent as its secondary stat and 48% lunar charged damage. Now it does seem a bit low on this list, but there are a few additional benefits for using this thing. Because Flins only needs to crit 4 times with his regular rotation, it's actually pretty pragmatic to crit fish for those 4 hits. This applies to other weapons as well though, but I figured I'd highlight it just for this one. And due to all the variables mentioned earlier in my Flins showcase video, the difference in the lunar charge damage when it critted from his signature polearm versus the Prospector Shovel was only 8% more, so yeah, that's why I'm bringing this up. Anyway, next we have the Tamayura Te no Ohanashi, and with a specific set of criteria, aka I set a baseline of 138% energy recharge, this weapon actually has the perfect combination of stats. But in teams where energy isn't isn't an issue, then this weapon is definitely not as good. Then we have the boomer event weapon, the Missive Wind Spear, which is also perfectly usable. Frankly, if you have either the Tamayurite or Missive Wind Spear, give these weapons a try on your Flins to see if it feels good enough to skip on the resources required for the Prospector's Shovel. And anything under these I don't really recommend, except for maybe the Favonius Lance if it can situationally push Flins over the edge for an extra Mega Burst or something. But he does lose a lot of damage if you build him specifically to Mega Burst every rotation, and he also extends his rotation and field time where buffs start to fall off, hurting his performance even more, and thus, overall, personally, I don't really recommend the Favonius Lance, but I'm sure some people will be able to be more creative and make it work. Wow, we've reached the whale-ish section of investment priority, constaflintions, and level 100. Yep, another new section to add to these guide videos. For Flynn's investment priority, it's a bit of a toss-up between his signature weapon and his Constellation 1. Flynn's Constellation 1 allows him to cast a third mini burst during a standard rotation. It also provides him more energy per rotation, but interestingly, it also leads to him needing about 6 more energy per rotation and thus about 2 to 3 more energy recharge rolls on average. Now, one important thing that most theory crafters often overlook is about how it feels. Having this third mini burst feels really good to use. Between his signature weapon and his Constellation 1, they provide close enough gains on paper, but his Constellation 1 feels way better to use in my opinion because it just feels cool to be able to do a third mini burst. As such, I personally would choose his Constellation 1, and I also prefer the idea of losing a 50-50 to guarantee my next character in comparison to the Weapon Baroness Fate point potentially being wasted. Another question is, what about Anefa? Frankly, Anefa is likely the biggest gain to his team's performance because Anefa provides Flins with roughly a 20% increase to his damage output, a shield, and also Anefa's own personal damage. If I had to choose between his Constellation 1, Anefa, and his signature weapon, I would most likely pick Anefa first because I like robots, then Constellation 1 because I like extra lightning bolts, and then his weapon because I guess I like a lantern on a stick. Granted, there is justification for picking any of these over the others based on your personal preference, so don't let a sweaty basement dweller like myself tell you what to do with your hard-earned Primo Gems, and we also don't know when Anefa might get a rerun, so there's also that to consider. Okay, let's finish off his constellations. His Constellation 2 adds some additional lunar charged hits and 25% electro resistance shred. Obviously, this is a great constellation. Alternatively, Flins can flinflate his damage with his Mega Rotation. Burst. Next, we have a quick comparison with and without everyone's favorite robot, the Anefa dispenser, Brigitte. By simply replacing Favonius Fischl with Favonius Brigitte, now Flins was able to single cycle our Kongomoto friend. Granted, maybe with the stringless and a better build on Fischl that might have been barely achievable for Fischl, but regardless, Anefa is a fantastic buff for Flins. Anefa increases the base multiplier of Lunar Charge by 14% and provides a very substantial Elemental Mastery buff to Flins as well. In this example, Flins dealt nearly 20% more damage with his largest Lunar Charged hit, and with Anefa's superior personal damage in comparison to Fischl, Flins was able to comfortably one-cycle our green pudgy friend. Who'd have thunk that, lore-wise I guess, a robot and a graveyard man would make a great team, but hey, they're sure to flinish off their enemies and put them 6 feet under. Now for Flins' talent priority, just level up his burst above all else, and as you can see, about 10.1% of his damage comes from his normal attacks, which in this case improves from leveling up his elemental skill, as well as elemental skill type damage, which is his elemental skill 2, so you can level up his skill as a second priority to increase this roughly 13% of his damage output. Then we have the Lunar Charge reaction, which of course leveling up his talents doesn't affect, so yeah, prioritize his burst, then his skill, and then you can level up his basics last if you feel like it, but you don't have to level those up. We've made it to the definitive, Flinformative, and Flinspirational math, starting with his artifacts and stats. By far, Flynn's best set is the Knight of the Skies Unveiling. Since Flynn should be used with Ascendant Gleam, and pretty much always be used with Ascendant Gleam, the Knight of the Skies Unveiling provides, with its 2-piece set bonus, 80 Elemental Mastery, and with its 4-piece set bonus, 30% crit rate, and 10% lunar damage. Clearly, this set is designed for main DPS lunar characters, and Flynn's is a main DPS lunar character. For the Sands, it's attack percent. The other main stats, Elemental Mastery and Energy Recharge, are generally not recommended, but sure, you can use them. Elemental Mastery just gives you less damage than attack percent, so you would prefer attack percent. Energy Recharge, though, is an interesting option, and can sometimes be useful for enabling more Mega Bursts, and or battering at the beginning of Stygian Onslaught. However, I think in most situations you're better off with other characters battering Flins, like them using Favonius, over sacrificing a ton of his personal damage with an Energy Recharge timepiece. Next, we have his Goblet, where, again, attack percent is the most recommended. I did calc an electro damage Goblet for humorous purposes, and it was about as funny as I expected, or at least I guess as funny as a number on a spreadsheet can be, because I don't have any good punchline to describe how flimsy it feels to use on Flins. Flins' damage distribution consists mostly of Lunar Charge damage, and while electro damage doesn't boost Lunar Charge damage.
What am I even doing? Yeah, staging onslaught pretty much got me. Very likely won't be able to do the next one too. What it is what it is. I have enough so or con. Might as well see what Flins does. With a team that it's alright. Maybe just craft the goblet. Very unlikely for me to get something crazy anyway. Where is... So attack percent, crit rate, crit damage, goblet. Four-liner, about to roll, completely garbage, but it's whatever. I just want to test out Flins anyway. This is complete garbage, all into garbage, to be expected. That was to be expected. Like, I guess he wants crit damage more. Like, crit damage, attack percent. Anything with EM. I guess this is a... That's as good as it gets. I have a HP. Mm. Do I really care? think it's EQ. Yeah, I'm just get rid of this. And let's refine some. More of that as well. Well, anyways, yeah, I got Flins. Just to beat the next Stygian. Will it be worth it? God knows. Only reason I think Flint's is okay is because um I have only reason I think Flint's is okay is because I have enough. I think Llama synergize
Next,
better
we
with
have the
him
Marichaussee Hunter, which is usable specifically
than
with
she
one and
does with Nefer. Like Nefer doesn't trigger Hyper Bloom, whereas Flint's just better synergy with Dendro. Where he triggers both Lunar Charge and stuff. So I just wait for Colombina. And the team is completed. Alright, so that's pretty